We're really excited to have everybody here. We've got a great week of programming, and luckily we're all inside today because at Alexander we're getting a really good rain. It's been a dry couple months, but we're getting some rain. I don't know if it's too late or not for the crops, but we're thankful to get some rain going. And this would not be a good day to be outside at Alexander right now. But we're really happy to have a group of Latham experts from all around Latham country, and excited to have a great conversation this morning. So I want to introduce everybody, and then we'll get started here. So I'm John Latham. I'm the president. I'm coming from Sheffield, Iowa, close to Alexander. And then we have Mark Grunmeyer, our soybean product manager, is live from Belmont, Iowa. So Mark, wave there. We've got Lyle Marcus. Lyle is up in Wilmer, Minnesota, and is our corn product manager. And then we have Bob Foley. Bob is live from Sioux Falls and master of a little bit everything and part of our research team. So happy to have Bob with us. And we also have Phil Long. Phil is at his home in Dow's, Iowa, and is our precision agronomist. So happy to have you on, Phil. And then Darren Chapman is another precision agronomist, and Darren is live from Spencer, Iowa. So happy to have you on as well, Darren. And then last and not least is Gary Geske. Gary is master of everything in the north and is from Enderlin, North Dakota. So it's great to be able to have everybody on from all over Latham country, and really looking forward to a great discussion. We're going to start off this morning with talking about soybeans, and first question will be for Mark Grunmeyer. And then before I forget, if you do have questions, you can field questions online on Facebook Live, and we'll get to your questions later on. But we do have a few questions here to get things started off. Mark, we've had a lot of questions about soybean supply and what soybean technologies can farmers be looking for in the future. Maybe you'd want to address some of those questions.
Yeah, thanks, John. Well, the newest technology that's close to approval is XtendFlex from Bayer Crop Science. And this new herbicide trait really combines the glyphosate and the dicamba tolerance of the Xtend crop system with tolerance to glufosinate, which is Liberty herbicides. So we are already starting to make room in our lineup for these new products. We're cutting back a little bit on some of the older technologies like the Roundup 32 and this great Liberty Link. Currently, we are waiting on the European Union to give final approval for XtendFlex. We continue to expect that any day. Hopefully it comes soon. Latham Seeds has 2020 production acres of 6 different XtendFlex soybeans that range from a 1.2 to a 3.5 maturity, and we have access to others if needed. As far as general supply is concerned, we're looking good right now. Of course, harvest hasn't started quite yet, but even with the drought conditions we faced in 2020, most of our production fields are really looking pretty good. We've had strong early demand for Enlist E3 soybeans, naturally, and we know there's going to be tight supply of some of those brand new E3 varieties that we've introduced. But overall, I'm really optimistic that we are on the brink of a banner year in soybean seed sales.
Thank you, Mark. I agree. It's the year of the soybean at Latham. We're off to a really strong start. Let's switch gears a little bit. We'll come back to Mark, and let's talk a little bit about corn. And we've got Lyle Marcus, our corn product manager, here. And speaking of supply, what about our corn supply? Has any of the extreme weather affected our corn supply, Lyle? Are you on mute, Lyle?
Sorry about that technology challenge there. Got to click the mute button. Sorry. No, John, thanks for the question. We have a great group of partners that help us with our seed corn production. They have our fields scattered across a large geography from Nebraska, Michigan, into Minnesota. A very high percentage of that is under irrigation, so that helps us with the drought issues and some of those things that we see happen to us in 2020. Fortunately, we dodged a lot of the wind issues, so not much of our crop at all was hurt by the wind. A little leaning, no losses at all there. So excited about that. I received a report last Friday. We were about 20% harvested already. Harvest began a little over a week ago. I'm sure they made great progress over the holiday weekend, and so we're probably in really good shape there. The cooler weather, everyone gets concerned about cooler weather. Frost on seed corn is not good. The forecast looks good. In the Minnesota production, we're going to get a little cool here tonight, but should stay above freezing. And then we got a 10 to 15 day forecast that will keep us in nice temperatures. But those cooler temperatures also aid in drying process of the corn, and look for some great quality this year, and supply looks very, very good. So
great to hear. Thanks, Lyle. Let's switch gears, and we'll come back to Lyle here in a minute. Let's talk to Bob Foley. And Bob's been doing a lot of great videos. If you haven't been watching on Facebook Live, talking about corn, and just kind of all summer long, it's been a great series. Bob, what else have you been up to besides doing all the great videos you've done? Oh, you're on mute too, Bob.
Good. Thank you, Don. Sorry about that, guys. Good morning, everybody. I think right now the current release is going to be, we did about an 8 or 10 minute video on semi-determinate, semi-flex, and understanding flexing, and how the whole idea of a flex is really not a misconception about ear length, but about the three-dimensional way a corn hybrid can add or subtract. So that's in the hopper. We have one planned to shoot this week on taking out to a mini strip and showing you how we do a research mini strip trials. I think we'll throw a drone view in from there while we're standing in the field over the top of us. Tomorrow at 8 a.m. We have done a farmers roundtable to discuss there's 4 farmers from Latham country that joined us to discuss their experience and their history in dealing with a challenging harvest. I think it really came off pretty well, and they're going to cover things on not only the harvest when it's been challenging, but storage of the grain that's been through a fall where we can get grain damage, and how to take care of residue for next year and preparing for next year with a harvest that's, in some places in Iowa been collapsed or drought stricken, western, flooded in the north. And so we have a really diverse group of guys to talk about different ways to handle the grain and get through the harvest. And then we do a lot of traveling in the next 6 or 8 weeks as we try to stay ahead of the harvest and the combines, and everything starts to get compressed pretty quickly here. So if time allows, we're going to try to do a video on production, bringing the harvest of your hybrids for next year into the plant, drying it on the ear, where grade sizes come from on the ear profile, and show what goes through a production field and getting it into the bag and onto your farm. So that's one that Amy and I have been talking about for a long time, and I think it could be pretty good. So we're going to try to get that done if the travel allows.
All right, very good. Thanks, Bob. We'll come back to you for another question here. I want to switch gears and go to Phil Long, our precision agronomist. And we're really fortunate to have an industry-leading precision ag program, and with 2 of our experts, Phil and Darren, here today. Phil, with the unpredictable weather we've had this year, can our Data Forward app help farmers with yield estimates or determining crop conditions?
Sure. Thanks, John. Yeah. If you're using a lot of our farmers and dealers are using the premium version of our app, provides a great opportunity to look at satellite images in season. As we get close to harvest, we think about yield maps and hopefully making sure that combine's ready to capture that information. Satellite image really is just a yield map all season long. So one of the biggest things that I get is, why is my field all red, and what does that mean? And red doesn't always equate to bad, the way I look at it. So if you're looking at a satellite image or a yield map, red could be 175 bushel an acre. The dark green areas could be 240. So you got to put it into perspective and make sure you understand that. The scale on the app is actually a 0 to 1 scale. So 0.6 to 0.8 would be really good. and anything above that is excellent. So really what it's taking into account is the canopy. So think about it that way. Think about the amount of biomass out there. Sometimes we get ourselves into trouble, especially early in the season with nitrogen, thinking, oh, it's a little bit yellow, maybe we've lost a lot of yield. And sometimes that's the case, but that's why it's important to understand the timing. So when I look at satellite images, and if you want to compare to a yield map year over year, that kind of thing, look at that July timeframe on corn. So around pollination, maybe slightly after, gives you a good indication of how much stress that crop is under then and how it's going to reflect in the yield. Obviously, like Bob was saying, we have a lot to go between, pollination and harvest. But mid-July, and then for soybeans, early August is typically a good time frame to kind of compare the stress on that plant to what comes out in yield. So yeah, there's just a lot of ways to use it. I know this year we had a lot of hail damage. Even some insect infestations that we really saw come through. Darren and I also have some exciting multi-hybrid studies that were showing up on the satellite images. So exciting stuff, and looking at it, after you get used to looking at those images, can be very helpful to making some of those decisions in season.
All right. Thanks, Phil. Well, we'll get back to you here in just a minute. We also have Darren Chapman, our other precision agronomist. And Darren, how do we prepare combine and yield monitors to gather accurate yield data?
Yeah, thanks, John. Going into harvest, keep in mind that we're not just going out there to harvest your crop. So we're also out there to harvest yield data. So good yield data is kind of like looking at your overall operations report card, right? So then you can sit back, look at the big picture and kind of ask yourself, how did we do this year? Or how can we improve for next year? So I would suggest, maybe concentrating on improving maybe one or two things for the next year. Because, a lot of us have, all these fancy yield maps and, some valuable data collected, but we don't always take the time to really study the data and put it to work. So that's why Phil and I are here. We can make recommendations based on your data. So making recommendations from this data also means that you have to feel pretty confident that the data you gathered from the combine is accurate. The old saying, garbage in, garbage out, right? So there's some important uses for yield monitors. There's several of them actually. It's you can obviously comparing hybrids and varieties. You can develop tile maps, negotiate rents, make production plans. You can even conduct on-farm research. You make management zones, and then you can also make profitability maps. So gathering this data, it's really important to take the time to inspect your yield monitor system on the combine, calibrate. I know it's when you're getting busy and towards harvest time, it's tough to stop and take the time to do these things, but it's so important for the end results. So, look at inspecting all your hardware that ties you to gathering valuable, accurate yield data. No matter what yield monitor system you use, most of the components are pretty similar. I'd recommend always referring to your manufacturer's manual. They've got pretty good guidelines in there to follow. But a few things to consider inspecting. You can start with your clean grain elevator on the combine. So look at your chain. Make sure it's tight but not too tight, right? So and then inspect every one of your paddles in there. So consistent grain flow is very important for accurate yield data. So it's one thing to look at. Look at your flow sensor. This is typically mounted at the top of the clean grain elevator up in the tank of the combine. This is obviously what gathers the yield. So sometimes you need to, depending on what system you're running, check the clearance between the clean grain elevator paddle and the flow sensor. Look at your manual, manufacturer's manual. So they'll give you some tolerance recommendations where that's supposed to be. So that's really important. Then another thing to look at is your moisture sensor. So if we don't have accurate moisture percentage, obviously that's very vital to your yield accuracy. So if you have a moisture sensor that's mounted on the side of the clean grain elevator, there's probably a white proximity switch located in there. Good way to check this is to just stick your hand up in there, put your finger over the piece of plastic. That auger should turn on in the moisture sensor. So this will give you kind of a good idea if the switch is adjusted properly. So that's some things to look at. And I can't stress calibrating enough. I mean, you could do it as much as you can throughout the season, because as you know, throughout the field, the consistency in our grain changes. So if there's any chance to, true up your pounds per load consistently throughout harvest, this is going to confirm that your yield is staying true. So whether you're hauling grain to the elevator or you got a scale on your grain cart, however, just true up those loads and compare them to your actual weights. So that way, that you're confident in gathering good yield data. So if it's, I can't stress enough, just take the time to do these things, even if you're in the heat of the battle. You're going to be a lot happier with the results of your report card at the end of the year.
Oh, that's great, Darren. Great information. And I think you can see why so many people want to work with Phil and Darren. They're doing a great job and adding a lot of value for a lot of farmers. So we'll come back to Phil and Darren here in just a minute. I'm going to switch gears and talk a little about seed treatment with our expert, Gary Geske, who's up in Enderlin, North Dakota. We've gotten a lot of questions about visible difference in seed treatments. For example, is the seed treatment still working if there's only visible differences at the beginning of the season between treated and untreated seed?
That's a great question, John. I noticed the same thing in both my northern plots. The spring was pretty easy to see the seed treatment differences. Last week when I was doing the evaluations, it does appear that they may have evened out a little bit now and are starting to look pretty similar. But realistically, first, we need to realize that we're looking at two very distinct growth locations, meaning above ground or the vegetative and below ground are the roots. And the roots I've been looking at still appear to have significantly greater and healthier root systems and root masses than the untreated seed. Also, the stand count is higher on a treated seed, often by 4,000 to 9,000 plants per acre. Increased stem size on the lower part of the plant, pod count, seeds per pod, all lead me to believe that although they may look similar right now at a glance, come harvest time is when we're really going to see the difference.
All right. Thanks, Gary. We'll come back to Gary here in just a little bit too. Let's go through, let's get back to soybeans here a little bit. And there's been a lot of news lately about XtendiMax, the chemical, and getting re-registered. And maybe, Mark, could you give us an update of what you're hearing there?
Yeah, sure, John. Yeah. So almost everybody in ag knows that Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal in California, this past spring, they made a ruling essentially vacating the labels of 3 dicamba herbicides that were used over the top of soybeans, XtendiMax, Ingenia, and Fexapan. Thankfully, the EPA kind of stood their ground, and they were able to allow farmers who had already made purchases of those products to get them applied to their fields and essentially avoid a weed disaster here this past spring. What most don't realize or didn't realize at the time is that those labels were already scheduled to be reviewed by the EPA at the end of 2020. So now we have to wait. We got to wait and see the results of those reviews. And obviously that decision is going to greatly impact the viability of the Xtend crop system going forward. And who knows, it might be several months before we have a definitive answer for our Xtend customers. The good news is that at Latham High-Tech Seeds, we have options. And if farmers are concerned about the availability of those herbicides, those dicamba herbicides, we can supply them with products from other platforms like Liberty, Roundup 32, LLGT 27, Enlist E3, and hopefully fairly soon even extend flex. So we believe we've got options for those farmers out there that are maybe in a little bit of a bubble right now, not quite sure what they're going to do.
Yeah, that's the great thing about Latham. We're testing all the different technologies, all the best genetics, and so come talk to one of our dealers or a Latham RSM near you. We'd love to talk more about the technology that's right for your field for the 2021 planting season. So thanks, Mark. Great information there. Let's go back to corn. And Lyle, we're looking ahead to the 2021 lineup. What are some of the products you're really excited about?
John, great season looking ahead to harvest. We talked a little bit about some drought stress issues, some wind damage. A lot of fields we've been in, there's a fantastic crop in the good areas. There's a lot of places approaching, 300 bushel corn. So excited to see that. We have a number of hybrids released in the past 2 to 3 years that are really getting to become customer favorites. Unfortunately, can't be standing out in the field in front of them talking to you about it. So it's a little strange just sharing here, but we'll talk about a number of those. Our 3937 at 89 days has shown growers how well it can do in tough conditions the past 2 seasons. It looks great again this year. Its great emergence, early vigor are really keys to its success in our northern areas. And the late season integrity of that thing really shined through last year, especially with the late harvest the guys had up north. And so customers can be really excited about that product. 4937 at 99 day gives growers a chance to really chase top end yields if they want to push some management. It does work in more stable or lesser productive soils as well. But if you're looking to really chase some top end yields, this thing does great. Great dry down, test weight, keep the populations in a higher range for top yields. It has great integrity in the fall too. So when you're chasing those yields, you still have that stability. LH5245 quickly became flagship hybrid for Latham seeds. What I like about this one is that you can just plant it anywhere. It has one of the best emergence scores and vigor scores in our lineup. A good size ear with good deep kernel development, got some flex to it, so you can moderate population in those tougher soils and have great success. And customers really like the test weight of 5245 as well. LH5847 performance has been outstanding. We saw that all across our area in 2019 mini strip trials, and we're seeing that very, very same thing show up again in 2020 in the tests that I've been at. Disease tolerance is really key on this one, with Goss's wilt being top-notch protection there with that hybrid. We do recommend keeping this on the better managed soils. It matures quick in the fall, but yet retains that integrity at harvest time, so that we don't have to worry about standability issues there. Each of those hybrids I just mentioned has multiple trait options as well, so we can do straight Roundup or possibly a Smart Stacks or even a conventional hybrid. So we offer a lot of options there for growers to look at different things. So excited to see that. Tomorrow morning, you'll hear a little conversation. I'll introduce our 2021 new releases, 8 new hybrids to add to these that I just talked about. Very excited to see those. They're looking very good in the plots as well. And so we have a very strong lineup looking into 2021, and customer success is going to be fantastic. So.
Oh, that's great, Lyle. We've got a couple of those hybrids are so popular, they've got their own Twitter account. We've got 3937 and 5245. You can check them out, follow them on Twitter. So let's switch gears a little bit to industry-wide, and let's bring Bob Foley back in. Having worked with many different sized companies, family-owned, corporate, even a couple acquired companies going through transition, there's so many different systems in the seed industry. What is it that makes Latham's independence so meaningful to Latham country, Bob?
Yeah, thank you. We say independence just about like a throwaway word, and I think it's something that I'm pretty passionate about. I think the independence at Latham takes on quite a different meaning compared to a lot of the places I've worked for or been associated with. When we talk about independence, it reflects your freedom to choose. But at Latham, I think yes, we're free to choose, but I think how we apply our independence into different situations makes a lot of difference with what we come out with. So as you look across our product stream, you see the creations that we put into a lineup that maybe have come from all types of different breeding organizations in soybeans and corn, or chemical companies, and what they kind of created. So all of these products were created by somebody. It doesn't always mean they came from a large corporate. So we work with independent breeders, corporate breeders, US based, foreign based. There's some breeding consortiums we have relationships with. There's groups that are solely focused on traits, and groups that are solely focused on gene editing. And because we're independent, when we flex that independence, we want to make sure that every one of those guys, every one of those providers gets a seat at our table. When we look into their programs and we get backed up with good quality research, which has been expanding at a rapid pace at Latham, with good support from ownership and being able to utilize, our needs-based assessments from you guys, we can come out with things like Data Forward that Darren and Phil talked about, products like Soy Shield, Ironclad, Gladiator, downstream treatments that are unique, silage-specific products, Goss Boss, and when we get to flex that independence, we get to come away with really cool things like those. And coming into the future, there's a lot of neat stuff on tap. So the difference for it, I think, is, and the reason I'm passionate about the independence is because I've worked in the non-independents, and they're really constricted by what the corporate offers. They don't go out and license out based on needs assessment. They bring to you the products that they have, and if they don't have it, they don't have it, and they don't have a chance to go get it until they invent it or come up with it themselves. So we have the ability to kind of hunt on a daily basis and look for answers for your needs. So independence to our needs-based concept, and it's the key to everything that happens at Latham.
All right, thanks, Bob. That's great getting coming from your perspective. That's great. It's a real advantage we have being independent. So thank you very much, Bob.
Yeah.
Let's switch to precision ag again, and we've got Darren and Phil. Let's bring you guys back in. How do we prepare the combine and yield monitor to gather accurate yield data? Is there a secret there? Either one of you guys can jump in.
Yeah, so I'll speak up there, but yeah, I think Darren did a great job going through how we can get things ready, and I would further stress the importance of getting that prepared. One question I get asked a lot is, can we fix data after harvest? And the answer is just like everything with agronomy, maybe, but the biggest thing is having the data. So if you have yield data and maybe it's not calibrated, you didn't get that done, maybe you're ashamed of that. It's not a big deal. The calibration part we can fix if you have the weights and so forth. But if you're missing pieces of the map itself, or if you have multiple combines, things like that, do make it a challenge after harvest. But if the data is there, there's a lot that we can do to clean it up, fix it, and back calibrate essentially, and make that data quality data to use going forward for lots of things like variable rate, fertility, and so forth. So, Darren went through a good chunk of some of the things we can do, and I know we've had challenges on our own farm with a couple combines, and I would agree, making sure that you watch those maps so you get quality data at the end of the season is really important.
Would you want to touch on soil sampling? Either one of you guys, is fall the best time to soil sample, or when was the best time to do that?
Yeah, thanks, John. I'll jump on this one.
Yeah.
Soil, Phil and I, we stress big time on soil sampling. We believe that that's one of the most important things you can do in an operation. But we like to see, either sample in the fall, or if that doesn't work, if that's not possible, you can always sample and at early crop stage too in season. So if you think about it, what percentage of acres in a field typically produce the field's average yield? So, basing your fertility application off of your average yield maybe isn't always the best practice. There's chances that you're gonna over fertilize by over 45% of the time. The odds of getting correct fertilization might happen 5% of the time. You can under fertilize over 45% of the time. So just, soil sampling is the best practice here. But some of the benefits of fall soil sampling is that you can get you at least have good soil profile consistency as long as it hasn't been tilled yet. You got fertilizer application that can occur right after sampling and after recommendations have been made. But sometimes, things in the fall don't always come together, and maybe you just didn't get the sampling done. So I like sampling early crop stage too. So that's also a good option. Some of the benefits of early crop stage sampling would be, recommendation plans, so they can be made the next crop year right before harvest. You could possibly gain 23 to 41 days of spread time. There's plenty of time for crop planting. Fall tillage isn't halted because we're waiting for sampling results. And then the soil tests also reflect the actual crop available nutrients at the time. So it's a good time to sample as well. But keep in mind that with Phil and I and Data Forward, we do offer a couple options for soil sampling. So we've got the in-app function of you can do it yourself soil sampling, make your own grids or zones. We can sample for you. We can also pull in historic soil analysis. So it's not really how you gather the data that we care about. It's getting it and letting us help you work with it. So we'll work with you either way on that. But so if you're looking to make a few improvements to your operation, there's a few things I would suggest, I guess. Number one, soil sampling. Obviously, gather good data. And number three, invest in your planner. So these are three activities that will lead directly to your return on investment.
Great information. We're really blessed to have two of the best precision agronomists in the industry with us. And so if you have a question, feel free to bring it on the screen now, or otherwise, we'd love to talk to you offline as well. So thanks, Darren and Phil. Let's switch gears back to seed treatments again, and we've got Gary Geske. Gary, we've got a lot of guys talking, obviously times are tough. They're looking to cut some costs, and they're talking about using a fungicide and not the insecticide to save some money. Is that a good idea, or what's your view on that?
Well, that's a loaded question, but I'll give it a try. There really is a lot more to the answer than just like aphid control, or more realistically, aphid suppression that they talk about. Let's think about how we protect the corn in this rotation. It comes treated with an insecticide, to control wireworms and seed corn maggots. And those same insects feed on soybeans also in the spring. The soil may have warmed up some from corn planting time, but we're planting earlier. And there are still those low cold soils, and that's where we see those issues and problems. We're also planting many, many more seeds. So losing a few, we may not notice until harvest time. Bean leaf beetles are another insect that creates some early season issues, but we don't notice that either until we see the discolored seed at harvest time. So Latham Soy Shield Plus also has 2 additional fungicides added than the competition, and that adds for a more complete protection package also. So I'm not real sure that I would accept good enough protection, one for only a few bucks more an acre, likely less than a bushel an acre. We can have best in class performance, and I really think that's what we're shooting for, is best in class performance on seed treatments.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it. Well, I don't see any questions right now that have popped up. Like I said before, you can certainly contact us offline. We'd love to talk to you one-on-one. This has been a great opportunity to talk with our experts. You can see what an advantage it is for us at Latham having experts in each one of the states that we do business in that are looking at crop conditions, they're looking at corn and soybeans, helping us choose our lineup. It's a great advantage, and we've got a great team, and really happy, thankful that you're all able to join us. And we couldn't be in the field today, but this works out really well. So if I don't see any other questions, we're going to conclude this session. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you, John, because of your position at ASTA, if you could give us a little update with the editing and all the conversations we've been having. I know you and I talk a lot about this, but I think everybody would probably like to hear a little bit about how that's going to affect Latham and what's going on in those avenues.
Well, thanks, Bob. Yeah, I'm fortunate to be chair of the American Seed Trade Association right now, and one of the issues that we're really focusing on is gene editing. We've been working hard, ASTA in general, with the USDA as well as the EPA, and we've just gotten an update from the EPA this last week. We're still going through about a 142-page brief to kind of understand it, but we feel fortunate. But there's parts of the world that gene editing, they view, like in Europe, they view gene editing the same as a biotech event. And certainly we don't want to see that at all. Gene editing has a tremendous amount of promise because you can do a lot of the same things with conventional breeding. The end result is, but you're doing it so much quicker. And so we can help solve problems. And some of the problem with biotechnology is the cost. It can cost billions of dollars to bring a product forward. And so with gene editing, we've got a lot of new companies getting into the mix. They can work with a lot of different genetics and bring a lot of choices. And to me, that's what it's about for our customers and anyone in the seed industry. We want to have choices. We're always looking to solve the latest problem that we all have. And some of these problems come up quick, and we don't have 10 years to solve them. So gene editing has a tremendous amount of promise, and we're excited about it, not only at Latham, but in the seed industry in general. It can be a real benefit for big and small companies. So yeah, thanks, Bob. That's a great question. Something that's we're taking a lot of time and working with. But I appreciate
and
the
I
question.
think, yeah, good. I think it's great that you're on it. I think it's really important for us as a company because in the part we talked about our independence, it allows us to partner with some of the editing companies that are on the forefront of some of this stuff, even in lieu of the permission slips being signed along the way yet, but we're able to work on it so that we're ready and stacked when all of this becomes available. And I think it's really it's the next hurdle that we're going to cross in plant breeding, and I think it's really important that everybody stay really close, shoulder to the stone on this idea, because it's going to be what's coming to the farm very fast.
Definitely, it's kind of the next frontier, and we're all excited about it. So any other questions anybody has or comments from our panel of experts? All right. Well, if you're in the rain, stay dry and stay warm today. It got a lot cooler in Iowa anyway, and I know that's coming to the rest of the Midwest. So stay dry. Everybody have a great rest of the week and a great harvest. So thanks so much for joining us, and don't forget to join us the rest of this week. Today, tomorrow, and Thursday, we'll have more great content coming to you from the Latham Virtual Field Day. So thanks everybody for joining us. We'll sign off now.
Bye, everybody.
Long, everyone.
Bye.